NFL Week 2 is here, just like that. We're looking forward to Sunday games once again. We've got a Thursday night football preview on our YouTube page right now. If it's already been, you can go see how we did. If not, you can go and see our selections for Thursday Night Football. My name's Luke Elder. I'm next to my good friend Tom Collins. 3 different shirts, 3 podcasts this week, Tom. I'm just saying.
Two different shirts for me. Yeah, we are filming this directly after the horse racing pod. If you have come from that one, I am not a tramp. I do own different t-shirts, but we are filming this straight away. Luke has kindly changed, but into just a disgusting jersey.
Honestly, I just got hot. I had a hoodie on. It was a bit hot. I thought, you know what, I'm not going to make it through another podcast. So, victory. It's normally Victory Monday for Seattle, but it's Victory Thursday.
Yep.
It doesn't quite have the same ring to it, but we won last week, so on the rare times that we win this year, I'm gonna crack it out. So we're fine on that front. I think we might win again this week, but we have got plenty of plays for the week coming. We didn't do too badly last week either, Tom. Throughout literally the entirety of the week, there were winners sort of left, right, and centre.
Yeah, we had plenty of winners. You more so in terms of quantity than I did, but you did put up more selections. I had one big winner, which was the long shot of the Steelers to win money line at a big price. So that was quite nice. We struck at roughly 50% on the podcast. Let's go a bit stronger this week, at least into 65, 70%, and rack up some big profit.
See this? This is called a play of the day victory sip.
We're not coining that.
That's good. That's good. That's the taste of Ken Walker getting into the end zone, my friend.
Oh,
good?
brilliant.
No? Okay. Sorry. Let us know if you like the victory sip, because I can be really obnoxious with that. We will hopefully be enjoying a joint victory sip next week, but we're going to do a part of the show where we call What on Earth? And we're going to look back at last week. And Tom, what on earth was Will Levis doing? Just in general. We don't expect him to be a good quarterback. We don't expect him to be serviceable this year. But what on earth was he doing against Chicago? Everyone's now saying that Chicago are a brilliant defense. And they might be. But you can't judge them against Will Levis. Anytime he did something, it was wrong. He threw 32 times. He completed on 19 of them. He managed to throw for 127 yards. And he single-handedly let Chicago back into the game. And also, I was on the under. That was the most stressful viewing experience I have had in a long, long time. Every time that Red Zone cut to that game, Will Levis was giving the ball back to Chicago. What on earth, Will Levis?
Yeah, the guy had an absolute stinker. I completely agree with that. And I love how you say, what on earth were you doing? Just generally. That's absolutely brilliant. Everything was wrong. My what on earth this week is not going to go to a player. There will be plenty of those in the coming weeks, I'm sure. But it's going to go to a head coach. What on earth were you doing, Antonio Pierce? Not going for it. 4th and 1 on the Chargers 43. You're 6 points down. Head coach of the Raiders. You need a score. At least a field goal at this point. 7 minutes left in the game. The Chargers are going to get the ball back. They punt it. From the opposition 43, are you having a laugh? What on earth? They end up losing by 12. Shock.
He's a player's coach, though. Not going to be for much longer if you keep doing that. That was not the smartest idea, we'll say. But let's look forward to the upcoming week. If you haven't subscribed to us, or if you're new here, please do subscribe. Normally, my voice sounds a lot healthier than this, but we're battling through it at the moment. So let's get things out of the way before I completely crack. And Tom, go first with your first pick.
Yeah, my first pick this week is a team that we've talked about a lot on our NFL podcast so far, and that is the Baltimore Ravens. And I like them on the spread. Baltimore Ravens -9. They're against the Raiders, who we've already just talked about, with Antonio Pierce being the head coach. Look, anyone who has watched the podcast knows I love them. The Ravens this year, they played very well in week 1. They did lose to the Kansas City Chiefs, but I thought they played as well, if not better, than the Chiefs throughout that game, and they just fell short, arguably by a toe in the final second of the game. It was that close to them taking it to overtime, or winning, in fact. You know, I really think they're going to go super close to the Super Bowl. I think they'll probably get there, beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, and I think they'll win it. And to be honest, if they're going to do that, they're going to have to smash the Raiders this week. The Raiders are a below par team. They're poorly coached. They got stuffed by a team that I really don't like this year in the Chargers back in week 1. And Baltimore at home are just super tough. This is a team that racked up more than 100 yards, more than the Chiefs last week. They've proven they can do it on offense. And a defense at home becomes super sturdy and very tough to break. So I really like the Ravens. I don't think the Raiders are going to score more than 10 to 12 points in this game. And I think the Ravens will rack up at least 30. This could easily be a blowout. And yeah, the line is tough, 9 points. It's a 2-score game. But I think that's more than achievable for this unit. They're going to want to make amends for their defeat in week 1.
Did you see me put a throat sweet in then?
I didn't, thankfully.
I muted and everything. I did that, but I thought that might be needed to get through. But the Ravens appearing on almost every podcast we're doing at the moment, generally thanks to you. But last week was Thursday Night Football, so we'll allow that. I'm going to go a bit more stupid. One of my candidates for play of the day was going to be Malik Neighbors, who got off to a fantastic start in the NFL. He was instantly wide receiver 1 in New York. He played 100% of snaps. He was on the field the entirety of the time. 5 catches for 66 yards against the Vikings, who they're probably going to be a good defense this year. They were pretty good last year. He got 7 targets in total as well, obviously catching 5 of them. There was one real highlight reel catch where he went over a defender, went up, managed to grab it, came down with it, and he looked frustrated, honestly, because the quarterback play there last week was not very good in New York. But Washington are horrible against the pass. They're not a good defense, full stop, but they're really bad against the pass. Last year, they were ranked last in opposition passing yards allowed. This year, it doesn't look a great deal different. They blitzed a lot in week 1 as well, did Washington. So Daniel Jones will have to get the ball out fairly quickly. I think Malik Neighbors will have a good week. I think Wandale will have a good week as well, Wandale Robinson. But Malik Neighbors, I think he could step up. Over 64.5 receiving yards. I think that's a line that I quite like. And that's it for the Giants this week, Tom. There's nothing else to mention from my side.
There is. And what you're about to listen to, guys, is a load of trash. So just enjoy the next 30 seconds from Luke.
And then Daniel Jones over.
What was that?
And then Daniel Jones over.
Say it loud and clear for those at the back.
My name is Luke Elder, and I like the Daniel Jones overs on the passing this week.
Well done for admitting it, Luke.
Now introduce yourself to the class. Look, it sounds dumb, and it probably is. But Malik Neighbors, and I will say this, don't use this as a single. Use it as a double to go along with Malik Neighbors. That pays about 17 to 10. So again, not a massive price, but they go hand in hand. Last week, Daniel Jones was terrible. Awful. Not Will Levis bad, but bad. And it was a real horror show, effectively. But he gets Washington. Last week, Baker Mayfield, who is a serviceable quarterback, he's a good quarterback, in fact. He passed for 4 touchdowns and 289 yards. Last week, Daniel Jones was 186 yards on 42 attempts, 22 completions, but it was ugly stuff. He didn't really do anything right, and it looks concerning for the Giants. However, you say Washington, they're not good against the pass. They ranked last in opposition passing yards allowed last season. And last year as well, let's not forget, Daniel Jones did this in week 1. Against Dallas, he threw for 104 yards. Do you remember what he did in week 2?
I tend to try and ignore what Daniel Jones has done.
He was fantasy quarterback 1 in week 2. He went to Arizona. He threw for 321 yards. Washington are worse than Arizona. And the line, I'm not asking Daniel Jones to be good. I'm asking him to be, I'm asking him to be the bare minimum of an NFL quarterback. I like Daniel Jones passing yards. Doesn't mean they're going to win the game. It doesn't mean he's going to be good. But 207.5? I'm going to take the overs on that. But put it in the double with Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors is a standalone bet as well. But in the double, I think you might be able to get a little bit extra value with Daniel Jones. What just happened? Did I say anything?
I think what you've just done there is a sin. And to be honest, I disagree with everything. But we could actually go hand in hand with this game. Because you just said, and I quote, he doesn't have to be good. The Giants don't have to win the game. Now, I'm more than happy for them to not win the game, but your lines to both win, your player props. If the Washington Commanders beat them because I like the Commanders' money line in this spot. They're 4-5 to beat the Giants at home. I mean, is that not surprising? The Commanders played okay in week one. They put up points against the Bucks. Yeah, their defense was poor, as you've already touched on. But what is this Giants offense about? Neighbors, I've already said, is going to be a breakout candidate. And maybe even rookie number one wide receiver in terms of fantasy this year. So I wasn't surprised by his line in week one, and I wouldn't be surprised if he hits the over like you like in the bet this week either. But aside from him, they've got nothing going on. Life without Saquon Barkley is going to be tough, and they're already proving it. Dan Jones is already focusing too much on Kay Adams right now and his relationship rather than the actual football field. So I don't like the Giants at all. The Commanders are too good on offense, I think. Jaden Daniels showed so much talent in that week one appearance, especially with his legs. He was okay through the air, albeit he couldn't find Terry McLaurin at all. But through on the ground, when he was running the ball, he looked like Michael Vick 2.0. He was really, really versatile, agile, and making big plays. They've obviously got a couple of other decent running backs there as well, in Austin Eckler and Brian Robertson. And, there is talent in the wide receiver room. It's not the best, but they can catch the ball, which is more than what you need against the Giants. Washington have won 5 of the last 6 games in this head-to-head matchup. Divisional rivals, so only stretches back to 2018, which, is a good recent trend. And I really like them to enhance that record, to be honest. I'm taking the Commanders' money line. You can have your player props. I'll have the winner of the game.
I'll take that. If we land all 3, I'll be delighted in that part. I'm going to look at someone better because I'm tired of talking about bad players in Daniel Jones. I'm going to look at Sam Laporta, who I think he's going to have a good week. Obviously, week one, as far as tight ends go, he was okay, to be fair, because tight ends were not good in week one of the NFL season. But he gets Tampa Bay this week. Now, my main thought going into this was I think Amon-Ra St. Brown will have a big game because he needs to bounce back as well from a poor week one. But his line was like 80.5. It was high enough for already. The Tampa Bay secondary is the walking wounded. They got hurt in week one. On the injury report, they've got Zion McCollum, who is starting cornerback. They've got Antoine Winfield on there as well. They've got plenty of their secondary on the injury report and probably not going to make it for week 2 onto the field at the very least. But Sam Laporta was 4 for 45 in week one. The offense, it wasn't good. We expected Detroit to play against LA, it to be a shootout and just everyone to get points. It didn't happen like that. Detroit struggled a bit. It turned into a little bit more of a running game with Kyron on the other side and David Montgomery largely for Detroit, along with Jahmyr Gibbs. But Tampa, if you go back to last year, they're okay against the tight end, except they're not. They got quite lucky last year. They played against some really poor tight ends. When the big boys turn up, they struggle. Last year, George Kittle, 89 yards. Evan Engram, 95 yards. Dalton Schultz, 130 yards. They struggle against elite tight ends. And Dalton Schultz isn't even that. He's a very good tight end. He's not one of the elite guys. Sam Laporta is. He's one of the very best around. I think this is a bounce-back game for Sam Laporta. Over 53.5 on the receiving side of things. I think Detroit, I think they're going to do very well against Tampa this week.
Yeah, I like that play. I've got nothing negative to say about that at all. I've got Sam Laporta in a couple of fantasy leagues, and I too like the Lions in this game and actually moving forward this year. They're a very good team. If we are rattling through all these selections quick enough, just stay to the end. We'll recap all of our picks this week, but we are going to go from pick to pick to pick. And my next one, my third pick on week 2 of the NFL season, is going to come in with a team that I had success with in week 1. Now, that was the Pittsburgh Steelers. Many people didn't like the Steelers in week 1. I liked them. Many people like the Steelers in week 2, and I don't like them. They're playing the Denver Broncos, who, okay, they lost to your Seattle Seahawks, but I thought they played pretty well throughout that game, especially on defense. The Broncos are 3-point underdogs against the Steelers. Quite surprising, I thought, considering the quarterback situation in Pittsburgh right now, and the fact that Denver showed some kind of promise in that week 1 matchup. 6-4 on the money line, I think, is very fair. You can get a little bit shorter with some firms, but 6-4 is the biggest price available. I just think this matchup suits Denver, to be honest. Pittsburgh rely heavily on George Pickens. If they want a big play, they go towards Pickens. He's going to be covered by Pat Surtain. And we saw the job that Surtain did on DK Metcalf last week. He only had 3 catches for something like 27 yards. So if Surtain can do that to Pickens, then Pittsburgh are going to struggle through the air and not be as effective on offense. They're not the most effective offense anyway, to be honest. And I like Denver to stop their main player. Denver's biggest asset as a defense is covering the run. If they can't go to Pickens, they're going to try and let's go to Najee Harris, Jalen Warren. And if they can't do that, what on earth is Justin Fields / Russell Wilson, because we don't know who's going to start a QB, going to do in this game? I don't see how they're going to put up lots of points. And then you've got Bo Nix on the other side of the ball, who, yeah, he threw 2 picks, but at the same time, I thought he showed a load of talent in that week 1 performance, rushing and touchdown with his legs, doing a nice little pivot on the goal line to go past the Seattle defender. They've got Jaleel McLaughlin and Javonte Williams, who are a good tandem at running back. They're going to be able to make some yards on this Pittsburgh defense, despite them being good against the run. And through the air, they have enough talent, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton. We didn't really get to see much of Sutton in week 1. I like the Broncos here, money line. I think they're going to be overlooked because they lost in week 1 against a team that won on the road, but I fancy them quite a bit.
No.
Yeah, you like the Falcons in week 1 against the Steelers, so I'm not taking your judgment on Pittsburgh right now.
I didn't put them up, but
you didn't.
Denver didn't look good against Seattle.
I thought they were okay. Their defense was good. What was it, 2 safeties?
Yeah, that was our O-line. Our O-line sucks. Like, we lost George Fant, who was already a replacement for Abe Lucas, who still isn't back. And it was just bad. But I thought Bo Nix looked terrible, to be quite honest. I thought he looked awful. He looked good when he was running, throwing the ball. I don't know.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't like that one, but I'm happy to give benefit of the doubt after you went for the Steelers last week. We've got a new part now where we said we were going to do it last week, but it's if we agree on one. Now, me and Tom don't discuss the games when we're putting our selections forward. We don't want to sort of sway each other one way or another. However, we've come down on one together. The first ever joint play. And that's what we're going to call it. And we're going to track it every time we agree on one. We'll see how the joint plays get on. So, Tom, the joint play and the first ever one is the Jets -3.5. I love this. I think the Jets could be pretty good this year. They looked very good at times against San Francisco. San Francisco, one of the very best defenses around. I think they'll do just fine in this.
Yeah, I completely agree. They're against the Tennessee Titans, who blew a lead against the Chicago Bears when Chicago put up about 140 total yards on offense, and they still managed to beat the Titans. That shows how bad Tennessee were in week 1. I don't love betting road teams with a negative handicap spread in general, but I think the Jets on the road are surely going to smash Tennessee here. Tennessee, Will Levis, you've already talked about how poor he was. This Jets defense is better than the Bears defense. And to be honest, I thought New York played okay against the Niners. They got blown out. There was no doubt about it. But the Niners are a very good team, one of the best in the National Football League. I thought they showed signs of promise on offense. Breece Hall was largely curtailed and contained, but at the same time, he looked pretty good when he had the ball. Through the air, Garrett Wilson looked pretty strong. Alan Lazard's connection with Aaron Rodgers is decent as well, obviously from the Packers days. And A-Rod's going to want to bounce back. And I watched actually the NFL Fantasy program earlier this week on Sky Sports, and there was a section with Aaron Rodgers, an interview with Rodgers. And he was quoted as saying, at the Jets this year, we don't want to focus on the lows of the lows, on the low of the lows, or the highs of the high. And I think that'll easily be the right mentality moving forward. They got smashed in week 1. They'd have wanted a winning start. But they're just going to put that to one side, and they're going to make amends against the Titans. I think they'll win by at least 7 here.
Yeah, I was very close to putting up Breece Hall multiple touchdowns as one of the bets. I think it was about 7-2 or something like that. The one thing that stopped me is the Tennessee defense did look quite good in week 1. They've added plenty to the Tennessee defense. I mean, L'Jarius Sneed, I imagine, will be on Garrett Wilson for the majority of the contest. They got Quandre Diggs, they got Jamal Adams that came in as well. They look like a good outfit on defense. On offense, horrific. It just looks awful. And when you're going against one of the best defenses in the league, in the Jets, I don't think that's going to win very well for you. And I don't think Will Levis will exactly cover himself in glory. But that's the first joint play that we've got of the new season. I've got my bet of the day to come, or play of the day to come. So I'll do that last. Because, yeah, that's right. We're going in chronological order. I completely lost my head then. You've got one more to come as well. And this is your only player prop this week.
Yeah, my only player prop, and it's going to come in the primetime game. Sunday night football is at 1:20 a.m. on Monday morning or Sunday evening in the UK, but obviously in the evening in the US if you're watching from North America. And it's going to be Tank Dell over 51.5 receiving yards. Now, this is the game between the Houston Texans and the Chicago Bears. It's a pretty good game. I'm looking forward to watching it. We get Caleb Williams in primetime for the first time this year, as well as this high-powered Houston offense. Now, if you go back to last year, actually, let's start that again. Houston Texans will win this game, is what I'm going to say. Now, if you go back to last year, the Bears allowed the 10th highest average yards per catch to slot receivers. That doesn't sound too high in the league, but of a league of 32, that's in the top third. And they tend to struggle slightly against the slot. That's because they've got such good cornerbacks that they kind of don't have that nickel player. And the slot guy tends to be on one-on-one coverage against a linebacker or whatever, a safety throughout the game. Now, the Bears are going to focus on Nico Collins because we saw in week one just how effective he is. Last year, he was one of the breakout stars in the NFL at wide receiver for the Texans. They're going to double cover him, I imagine, and they're also going to want to, fill the box to stop Joe Mixon producing what he did in week one, which is just running all over the opposition and really making a mockery of the Colts D in week one for the Texans. So I think they'll stop Collins, stop Mixon. If you do that, there's got to be a man open, and Tank Dell is that guy. Now, he suffered an injury last year, which took him out of the back end of the season. But prior to that, he looked one of the best rookies in the league. If you go back through his stats, he had 6 games out of about 11 prior to the injury where he had 7 or more targets. In a couple of those, he had 11 or more. That's how high his usage was in the Houston offense. And actually, I was really encouraged by the fact he had 7 targets on his first game back this season in week one last week. Coming back off the injury, sometimes we can see players have a bit of a down week as they get back into football, but that wasn't the case for Tank Dell. He's going to be used heavily here. The line was originally 44.5 receiving yards, and the over would have been the best play of all time. But unfortunately, they've shoved it up to 51.5. Still, I think that's a little bit too short. He's going to rack up 60 plus here.
Yeah, I get that with Tank Dell. He looked really good in preseason as well. It's not just been a one-game thing regards to Dell. But I'll go in with my play of the day. I think Bijan Robinson could be in for a decent week. Look, he was good last week. I put him up as a anytime touchdown scorer. He did everything but score a touchdown. He was down at the 3-yard line once. But the Atlanta Falcons, they didn't look great. Now, that was generally in the passing game. Kirk Cousins just doesn't look ready to me to play football. There were times where he just couldn't throw. He wasn't putting any support on his plant leg when he was trying to throw the ball. Drake London suffered. Darnell Mooney suffered. Kyle Pitts, he had an okay game, but he still maybe didn't get the looks that you would have liked him to. The players that did well, Ray McLeod was the leading receiver. He's their slot guy. Bijan Robinson also did well. Bijan caught 5 passes for 43 yards. I think they'll be in a negative game script against the Eagles. I just think Bijan Robinson, 27.5 is far too low. They're against an elite defense. Kirk Cousins is going to have to get the ball out quickly. If you're doing that, no one downfield is going to be open as of yet. Maybe Ray McLeod, but Bijan Robinson is just going to get loads of tiny little dump-off passes. He should be able to take it for a fair bit further as well. We see Bijan Robinson when he's in the open field. He's a very, very tough guy to bring down, and he'll be getting 10 yards at a time. Let's say Drake London in week 1, 2 for 15. Darnell Mooney, 1 for 15. And in week 1 against the Eagles, the Packers played them, as Tom well knows. Josh Jacobs, he's a good back. He's not necessarily a receiving back. Even he was 2 for 20. They still used him in that part of the game. Bijan Robinson, if this line was 45, I would still like it. 27.5 is way too low. That, Tom, is my play of the day. If it doesn't come in, I think Bijan's injured.
Yeah, probably. He's going to be super effective. They're going to want to use him as much as possible. So I like it. And as your player of the day, given you're 1-0 so far, winning in week 1, then why wouldn't punters want to go with you? My player of the day is already a selection we've talked about, and that is the Jets. Minus 3.5. I'll start again. Jets minus 3.5 against the Tennessee Titans. It was our joint play, but it's also my bet of the day.
In the running order, that's different. In the running order, Tom put the Commanders down as his play of the day.
Yeah, I've changed it.
Okay, I didn't know if it was a mistake or if you changed it, but it's
no,
correct.
I've changed it.
I'm glad you've moved it onto the Jets because I prefer that one. But
I like both, but the price on the Jets is slightly bigger, so I'll go for that.
Fair enough. Player of the day for Tom is the Jets. That's a joint play as well. Player of the day for myself is Bijan Robinson, who will hopefully go over 27.5. I'd be very disappointed if that's not the case. That's our look at the NFL for week 2. Just quickly as well, and we'll find out who's watching deep into this podcast. I have got my first day presenting on Sky Sports NFL on Sunday. So I'll be chipping into the program at times live from a watch party over for the San Francisco 49ers. Let's just hide this quickly, just in case anyone it's for decorative purposes. But hopefully I'll come out of there alive. But looking forward to that. Frank Gore's going to be there, so we're going to have a chat with Frank Gore. But that's going to be fun, Tom.
Yeah, enjoy. I'll definitely be tuning in, and that's exciting for yourself. Hopefully it can be onwards and upwards from here. I think before we end the pod, we should just recap all of our selections. Do you want me to go first?
Go for it.
Okay, so TC's week 2 picks in the NFL. Ravens -9 against the Las Vegas Raiders. The New York Jets -3.5 against the Tennessee Titans. That is my play of the day. The Commanders money line at 4-5 against the New York Giants. The Denver Broncos to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers as the long shot at 11-8, 6-4, depending on where you can shop around. And Tank Dell in prime time to get over 51.5 receiving yards. On to you.
I've gone Malik Neighbors over 64.5 receiving yards at 5-6, and I'm going to include Daniel Jones in the double, but Malik Neighbors is still a single bet. But Daniel Jones added into the double over 207.5 passing yards is 5-6 standalone. I'm not going to do that. 17-10 as a double. The Jets obviously is Tom's play of the day, but the joint play as well, -3.5. Sam Laporta over 53.5 receiving is 21-10, which is a weird price. I fully expected it to be odds on, but 21-10, I don't mind that. And the play of the day is Bijan Robinson over 27.5 receiving yards in what will likely be a negative game script against the Eagles. I think that's the play of the day. As I say, I'll be disappointed if that didn't come in. Tom, that's us done for this week. We will be back next week, hopefully celebrating a ton of winners. And I'm really praying that my voice is a lot better for next week.
Yeah, you soldiered through. I think that suite managed to get a lot of attention on this podcast, but you soldiered through and very well done. Yes, hopefully we've got lots of winners coming from this week and we'll talk about them next week. Also, just to put a bit of spice into week 3, we're against each other in fantasy football, so we need to talk about that as one of our features as well.
We are. Tom's going to lose in week 3, is effectively what we're saying in this regard. I apologise for the cough suite, but it'd have been way uglier if I didn't in regards to that. But we will be better next week, hopefully, as I say, celebrating plenty of winners. If you haven't subscribed already, leave a comment down below, subscribe to us. You'll be kept up to date with every single thing that we do on the Turf and Touchdowns podcast. Best of luck in week 2. I hope you win your fantasy matchups, and I hope you land a few bets as well. Until next week, stay safe, look after other. Goodbye.